Hi everyone, in this video I want to talk about factoring trinomials with a leading coefficient that's greater than 1. Here are the two problems that we'll do, and to make sure that we don't take ourselves too seriously, let's think about the fun question. What is your favorite grilled food? All right, so this falls under quadratics, which is nested under Algebra I. Any sort of factoring of a trinomial that has x squared term would be technically quadratics. It's introduced in Algebra 1 typically and then reinforced again in Algebra 2. So this is the type of factoring problem that really confuses a lot of my students. And the reason being is they think that they can use the old factoring method of trinomials where you figure out what multiplies to 3 and then what adds to negative 22. But if you were just asked to just simply factor these two problems, well, you can't take out a GCF, right? A greatest common factor. There's nothing you can take out of everything. So then you think, okay, it's a trinomial, which means two binomials will multiply to get to that answer. And what we have to then figure out is, what two terms go in each of the binomials to then eventually FOIL or multiply out to getting that answer. The first problem I want to use a method called guess check. And then the second problem, I'm going to use a method called splitting the middle term. Okay. First one, I really like guess and check because there aren't that many options to have to check. So what I am forced to think about first, though, is what times what is going to end up multiplying to 7p squared. Well, there are really only two options, and that is 7p and p with problems like this. So you know that there are no other factors of 7, 1. And then now I'm thinking about how am I going to end up getting a plus 3 at the end? Well, if you think about the FOIL process, let's take an example like x plus 2 and x plus 3 that I've used in other videos before. This would end up giving us x squared plus 3x plus 2x plus 6. Oh, so these two numbers end up multiplying to be that third number in the trinomial. So we will, for this one, have two numbers that end up multiplying to 3. The reason why I thought we would try guess and check on this is there aren't that many of them. The one thing you really have to make sure of, though, is that you try, okay, we got plus 1, plus 3. But then we need plus 3, plus 1, and hey, I have to get a negative 22 in the middle somehow. Meaning like, right here, the two numbers have to eventually add to negative 22 while the 7 is thrown in the mix. And so we actually have to think about all of the negatives as well. What if I had negative 1? Well, then I would have negative 3. What if I had, and then this would be not 3. This would be minus 3 and then be minus 1. So those are all of my guesses, and one of them is going to work. It requires me to use my number sense or mental math to figure out how am I going to get a negative 22p in the middle. I know for sure these first two are not going to work. So really it's only down to the last two. And so I'm imagining getting negative 21p and then minus p minus a 1p. That's how I get the negative 22. Right here, that would not work because you would get negative 7p and then minus 3p. So I know of those four options, my third is the one that works. And I am going to circle that one. Now, the ACT knows that students could just multiply. This was a multiple choice question. They could just multiply this out and get this answer. So they're sneaky and they ask questions like, what is a factor of, something like this? Meaning like you would choose between p plus 3, p plus 1, p minus 3, p minus 1. And, it requires factoring, but they don't give you those answer options so that you can do it the easy way out. Okay, so the next problem has a leading coefficient that is composite, meaning it's not prime and it doesn't have just factors of 1 in itself. There are a lot more options that we would need to check. So let's list them. We'd have like 2r and 5r. We would have 5r and 2r. We would have 10r and r. We would have r and 10r. And that's it. But then we also have all of the factors of negative 9. So we would have minus 1 plus 9, minus 3 plus 3. But then, gosh, we have to write those 2r's and 5r's again because then we'd have plus 3, minus 3. Okay, when the options get to be exhausting, then if you're really good at mental math, you really could do guess and check for a lot of these. But I wanted to introduce a possibility. It's a little more, you have to memorize more steps in order to do this process, but it works so that's the nice thing. Guess and check can sometimes take a long time. If you really get a lot of practice with splitting the middle term, you can really speed up this process, and you know that it can rely on it because it will give you the answer every time. So here's how it goes. You take this, if it goes a x squared plus bx plus c, the first step is you multiply mult a times c. And so that is a times c here is 10 times negative 9, which gives you negative 90. And I think of that negative 90 as basically like the magic number for this problem, where we are literally going to split this middle term up into two terms that will add to 27r and then multiply to negative 90r. So if I bring this 10r squared down and the 9 down, I'm going to think about how could I split that 27r up into two other terms. So I know that the numbers have to, once again, add to 27 and multiply to negative 90. Now, negative 90 has, or we could say just 90, has a lot of possibilities. We've got 1 in 90, 2 in 45, 3 in 30, and then let's stop there and just try some possibilities. So if I'm trying to get to 27 and I know it's got to be negative 90, this one is jumping out to me right now. I could do 30r, but then negative 3r. So 30r minus 3r does add up to 27r, so we're good. And then the process goes like this. Then you do factor by grouping. So factor by grouping, which I do have a video on. and that is grouping those guys together, these guys together. It's like the first, set and the second set, this first pair, second pair. And you take out the GCF. So the GCF between these two is 10, and 10 is the highest, thing that can come out of both of them. And then you can take out one R. What's left over is R plus 3. And then I could take out, let's see, minus, and then what's left over, R. Oh, you know what? I just realized that this is not plus sign, that's minus sign. Good. Makes a lot more sense. Now this would be R plus 3. Hey, I know I do this problem correctly when these two match. That is good news that those match, because now the answer, it's almost like backwards, backwards distribution. The answer then is just you take this 10R and this minus 3, put those two together, and then the other binomial that is part of the answer is the one that's repeated. So my final answer then is that, and once I can check it by using the FOIL process to then figure out, do I actually get back to my original? So there you have two different possibilities. Some teachers feel very strongly about one or the other, but thinking about what is best for you, I think mental math. If mental math is a strong suit, then the guess and check might be your best bet. I've got some practice problems to try. Here they are. I will reveal the answers soon. You can pause the video if you need to. Okay, there they are. You can use guess and check or split the middle for either of those. Now, quote to keep us going after all that. A person without a sense of humor is like a wagon without springs. It's jolted by every pebble on the road. Oh man, I love this, because it really makes you realize that a sense of humor is extremely important for having a smooth road during your life. And I think I'm going to think about this a lot this week. One jumped out to me as I was doing a little research. So I hope this video helped you in some way, and I would love to see the answers to your fun question in the comments. And if you would like to keep up with new videos, please click subscribe. Thank you.